What's up, you guys? Joe Dobby here. I am now a Deck Out Gaming affiliate. Use Joe Dobbs Deck Out at checkout. Deck Out Gaming has tons of singles for Pokemon, Dragon Ball Super, and Digimon TCG, as well as One Piece. They now buy list as well, so don't hesitate to reach out, and they got your back. Really high customer service ratings. Thank you guys, and yeah, let's get to the video. What's up, you guys? Joe Dobby here with another deck profile for you today, and the Ultimate Cup rules have just been announced for this wave, and one of the restrictions was the EX2 Impmon, which you will see in a bit. It's the Impmon that allows you to trash up to 3 more cards when that card specifically is trashed from the top of your deck as well. But before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know, I did tweet out something with regards to just me saying that this might be my last Nationals run with the Digimon TCG. After that, it's kind of up in the air whether I want to continue to play casually or just move on completely. The context is on my Twitter. You can follow me at DobbyJo, DOBBIJO. But basically, to summarize, it really just boils down to good personal life stuff that's happening. It has nothing to do with what I think of the game, but more that good personal life stuff. There's a lot of things I want to prioritize, in my life right now. So Digimon has to take a slowdown, and how big of a slowdown that is pretty much, up in the air. That said, I'm still going to be competing this year. I'm still going to be releasing videos this year. I'm actually hosting a tournament literally in 3 weeks. So check the description box below to see how you can join the Joe Dobby League with playmats, store credit from Deck Out Gaming, and memory markers from the awesome Captain Cinnabon. But yeah, that said, personal life stuff, awesome stuff, very thankful. But Digimon's gonna have to take a bit of a slowdown. In addition to that too, I've patiently, quietly, or not so quietly, waited for just tournament organizers in Canada to step their game up and want to host more regionals, want to host more IRL events within Canada, just because it's very expensive for us to travel to the US. So Nationals is the only way I can truly justify traveling. You guys can get airline tickets for $50 a pop, I guess. I don't know how a domestic flight, right? But Canada to US is expensive, and I can only hope that in the coming months, more Canadian tournament organizers will step their game up and be willing to host more regionals for Digimon. But it is what it is. That said, I'm just going to dive right into this profile. A lot of this is going to be very similar to the main build, but I have some reasoning for a few techs in here, and I hope they make sense. So first things first, this Pagu on deletion trash top 2 cards of your deck. We're well aware of that. Yamon here, when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon has Wizard or Demon Lord in its traits, trash the top 2 cards of your deck. So I prioritize the Yamon here because from a level 4 and above, you can now start trashing too. And I really want to get into any type of Balmon and hopefully get Beelzemon in trash so I can freely play Beelzemon that way. Getting into a level 6 has never been easier with Beelzemon till now, and I want to take advantage of this whole effect because it having an extra body, having that body stick to me is absolutely important, and at least the Balmon replaces itself. Whereas, the BT-2 Impmon with the Pagu stack, sure, you're trashing a lot, but you're also losing that body, having to wait another turn to Digivolve and kind of have another stack, quote unquote. So yeah, next I'm running 2 copies of the BT-2 Impmon. Honestly, I want to cut this guy entirely, but there are times where opening the double Impmon, and if this is one of them, being able to hard play that or keep it in raising when you have the one of Pagu is very, very good. In addition to that, with a lot of the other Impmons that you can play that can search you your Iron Makos, can allow you to trash to retrieve, all that stuff. Sometimes this Impmon can stay in the back and play the other one out, or reverse, depending on what you would like to do at the time. 3 copies of Impmon X Antibody on play. When digivolving by trashing 1 card in your hand, you may return 1 Digimon card with Evil Wizard or Demon Lords in its traits, and its inheritable is trash the top 2 cards of your deck. You got to be very careful with its inheritable, but usually you hope to win before you deck yourself out through these inheritable effects. There's quite a bit of them. But that said, I run a total of 12 options in this deck, which is quite a lot. And the reason why I do that is to trigger Impmon X Antibodies on play and when digivolving effect. I do run 3 of them. I'm thinking of cutting the BT-2 Impmon to 1 to make the X Antibody 4. Just because if I open up with a bunch of options, I can start to at least retrieve things from trash that I would need, particularly the restricted to 1 EX2 Impmon. And here he is, the EX2 Impmon that has recently been put on the restriction list for the Ultimate Cup. You know, like I said, right, when trashed from top of your deck, except by its own effect, you may trash up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, then reveal 4 cards on play, add a Digimon with Beelzemon in its name and an Iron Mako. So this is a pretty good card. We'll see how it goes as a one-of. It significantly slows the deck down because, you know, sometimes you can get really lucky and mill like 9 cards by getting 2 Impmon out, for example, or things like that through Beelzemon EX2's effect. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is going to hurt the deck that much if you go into the stack build in the same way that I am trying to do. And it actually opens up space for the security Impmon, which I really like. At the end of battle, you may play 1 purple level 3 Digimon card from your trash without paying its memory cost, and add this card to its owner's hand. I really, really like this Impmon because it can play the next Impmon that I will show you, and then this guy can either Digivolve to like a level 4, or it can attack and then warp into Beelzemon. This is a very good card late game coming out of security, especially if your opponent does not have lethal. So next, when attacking Impmon, if you have 20 or more cards, you can Digivolve into Beelzemon for 3, which is really awesome. And your turn, once per turn, when a card's trashed from your deck, delete one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon. Very good inheritable to delete floodgates that hinder your memory gains. So overall, great card. Wizardmon X Antibody here. When Digivolving, trash the top 2 cards of your deck. If Wizardmon or X Antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, it gains blocker instead. So as powerful as this card is, you have to be very careful, because if you're Digivolving over a Wizardmon, or if you put X Antibody too early, then you lose the trash top 2. Instead, you become a blocker. That versatility is great, but just be mindful of when you're doing it, because sometimes you can anticipate when your opponent's gonna be, you know, raising that Sparrowmon to attack you, right? So you can just go into Wizardmon, and 6k DP is not a joke right now, because a lot of the level 4s are 5ks. So that's a pretty good defensive position to be in. It's inheritable, same thing as Impmon X, trash the top 2 cards of your deck. 4 copies of this Wizardmon, which I really, really love. I even love the art. It's awesome. When it's trashed from the top of your deck, gain a memory, so great extender of your plays. And when attacking, reveal 1 purple card from the top of your from your hand and place it at the top of your deck. So this can set up what you're going to mill, especially with a combination of the Iron Makos. So a sequence would be getting into Impmon X, trashing X Antibody, and then Digivolving into Wizardmon, and then Digivolving into, you know, either of these Balmon, and then ultimately being able to regain memory through Iron Mako. And then the Impmon X, you know, you're obviously going to retrieve this if it's in your trash, and then you end up cycling it through Iron Mako, allowing you to, or Wizardmon, allowing you to place it back to the top of your deck to be trashed, so you can trash yet more cards from the top of your deck. So very good extender of your plays, very good inheritable, because it allows you to toolbox what you're going to mill. If you need to just delete something, you can add a card to the top that does that. If you need to mill more, if you need to get Rival's Barrage out, a lot of things will do that, which is awesome. 1 copy of BT-10 Balmon. Sometimes you want to stay in raising, so this is my stay in raising card, quote unquote. That way I can raise up and potentially trash 3, 5, 7, 9 cards potentially if I do have the full stack, which is 100% enough to get me into a Beelzemon if this Balmon should be deleted, which I really like. 2 copies of Balmon X to cycle my X antibodies. In addition to that, I can trash the top 3 cards of my deck, so long that it doesn't have a Balmon or an X antibody. Because if it does, it deletes a level 4 instead. And sometimes that's even better because it's a Digivolve for 0 as well instead of 3. And then 2 copies of the starter deck or the structure deck Balmon. Trash top 3 cards of your deck, and then for 1 turn, basically, it gets on deletion, play a Beelzemon if you got 10 or more cards in trash. So this is I'm going into blocker with a Wizardmon X antibody. I end my turn going into Balmon. So I can block with the Balmon, have it die, and then play a Beelzemon. That's kind of what it's for, and because I'm kind of playing a more stack meta, that's what I want to do. And if my opponent doesn't delete it, then I am pretty much going to... Because it can stave off an attack, right? Like, if I go in a Balmon and it's got the blocker because of the Wizard X, then my opponent could be like, okay, I'll attack next turn. And then at that point, the Balmon becomes free to go into Balmon X. It becomes free to go into Beelzemon X with an X antibody slipped under. And then you're trashing, like, potentially 9 more cards, right? So that could extend you to going into Beelz X to trash yet 2 to 3 more cards from this drop of their security, and they never got the chance to attack turn previous because they don't want that Balmon to die and play a Beelzemon for free. So that's a good play around. That's a good kind of like mind game tactic to see what you've got and to limit test your opponent's abilities and what they're willing to do. And yeah, very good kind of like tactical card. All right, so 2 copies of Beelzemon X Antibody. I love this card, but it's admittedly... I'm surprised they didn't limit Beelzemon X Antibody to 1 instead. I know people think that EX2 is the problem, but Beelzemon X Antibody is literally the one with the Digivolution effect that trashes the top card of your opponent's security stack for every 10 cards in your trash, right? So the way I see it is his Digivolution effect is really powerful. But at the same time, like, I get it. Like, either or is a fine restriction because the Impmon EX2 ultimately ends up fueling this Digivolving effect, right? So either or is fine. But now I can play Beelzemon X Antibody at 2, which is awesome. Yeah, so this is pretty much what led to the restriction of the X2 Impmon. And it's just a really good card. Like, you can swing with something that has X antibody underneath, especially with like the level 3 Impmon, and then use its when attacking effect to go into a Beelzemon, and then trigger X antibody underneath that to go into Beelzemon X, allowing you to do a ton of different plays, which is amazing. So if you don't go that route, you can go through the Balmon X antibody route. Balmon X will retrieve the X antibody, so on swing with the Balmon X, you can go to Beelzemon X antibody, trashing the top 2 cards or top 1 card of their security, depending on how much is left, and then swing for game, basically. So this is like your swing for game, and if you don't have game, that's why I run 1 copy of Blast Mode. 3 copies of Beelz EX2. I tried it at 2. I still like it at 3. When this card's trash from your deck, you may play 1 Impmon from your trash without paying its memory costs. And this is a good also like Digimon to play from trash when one of your Balmon dies, because if you really need something to delete on your opponent's board, you can do that the next turn with its when attacking effect. You can also trash more per turn, which I think is really nice. But more often than not, you're going to be going into this Beelzemon when a Balmon dies, because, you know, it basically has a pretty good all turns effect that when a card's trashed from your deck, gain a memory for every 10 cards in your trash. That said, usually when you go into the Balmon, you might not have a backup rookie or Impmon that will allow you to trash. Because I'm going into the stack version of the deck, I do prefer going into this guy with the Balmon effect and digivolving into Beelzemon over a Balmon instead, or over the structure deck Impmon instead. I don't really like playing this guy with the Balmon effect unless I know that this Beelzemon cannot be deleted by my opponent. Beelzemon Blast Mode here. When this card's trashed from the top of your deck, delete one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon. For every 10 cards in trash, increase the highest level. This effect can choose by 1. So very powerful card. This is a card that I do use with Iron Mako to put up top to delete something, and then if I have a Rival's Barrage, I can get it back to swing for game. Sometimes if you show that to your opponent, they forget about it, like, oh, he's trashed the Blast Mode, great. And then you've got like a Rival's Barrage sitting there. Sometimes they have that moment where they forget that you can retrieve it, and then you just game them from that point, so that's pretty good. 4 copies of Iron Mako. I know it's pretty aggressive, but this is how you're really going to keep adding that EX2 Impmon back to the top of your deck when you don't have access to Wizardmon. And it also doesn't need to attack to put the EX2 Impmon to the top of your deck, because you can just Digivolve and trigger that with Iron Mako. In addition to that, it allows you to gain memory per Iron Mako, and it's a searcher. Do I need more reasons to explain why I like them at 4? Probably not. But yeah, very good card overall. So key strategy is, I try to get I try to get 2 Iron Makos in the game as early as possible, because it's very easy to go up into a Balmon once the Iron Makos search you everything, and then potentially just trash 9, and then Balmon with the stack will be more than 9, so you play Beelzemon, and then next turn you're gonna get to 20 somehow, and then Impmon structure deck in Raising. Once you come out, Iron Mako saves you more memory, etc., and then you just win the game from that point. 1 copy of Calling from Darkness. I actually don't play this in my full throttle build, in like my regionals build, but I've seen some people play it. I only like it to cycle EX2 Impmon and whatever I might need at the time that I might be missing. There's a lot of other cards that will retrieve things for you anyway already, which is why in the full throttle build I cut it. But it's +3 spots, right? So this is one of those spots that replaces an EX2 Impmon for me. 1 copy of 7th Full Cluster. When you Digivolve into Beelzemon X Antibody, you can trigger this from your trash. You bottom deck it to delete one of your opponent's Digimon to the lowest level, which is really clutch because this effect has to trigger before your final swing, so you could potentially delete a blocker if it's the lowest level, and then the swing for game becomes solid. It's very tempting to play it at 2. Honestly, I would probably play it at 2 in the Ultimate Cup build, just because you have more space. But I really wanted to maximize Rival's Barrage and Beelzemon EX2 just to try and get myself going early. I don't want to see 7th Full Cluster in my hands at all, period. And I think just adding 1 more copy could do that, and I'd be pretty sad by that. 4 copies of Deathslinger. I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar. It's the same effect as Wizardmon. You gain a memory when it's trashed from your deck, and its main effect is delete a level 4 lower Digimon, and then you add 1 level for every 10 cards in trash. So it's just a good card. Arguably, no reason to play it at less than 4. Rival's Barrage is another way to cycle EX2 Impmon in addition to a bunch of other cards that you might need at the time, because when it's trashed from your deck, you place it in the battle area, and its delay effect is return 1 purple card or Tamer from your trash to hand. So very good stuff, and it's also a threat in security because it deletes one of your opponent's Digimon at the highest level, and if you play it from your hand, you can do the same thing. So it never feels bad, at least for me, which is why I like it at 4. And last but not least, we're running 2 copies of X Antibody. I really love X Antibody in this deck because of Balmon X. Being able to retrieve X Antibody through his Digivolving effect is really good. In addition to that, Impmon X Antibody just makes this option card a no-brainer to trash to retrieve something I really need, because I know that as long as I'm able to get Balmon X somehow, I can get it back and add it to my hands yet again. So having 2 copies is nice. It also works really well from security because it gains you a memory and it's added to your hand as well. So there's many ways to retrieve X Antibody. It's almost foolproof because you can retrieve it from trash, you can trash it with Impmon X to get something you might need when you don't need it yet, and in security it gets added to your hand and potentially ends your opponent's turn. And sometimes that's all you need to raise your structure deck Impmon and go into Beelz X with X Antibody and go for game, right? So I know some of you will be very specific, so let me explain. X Antibody option in security, passes memory, sets you to 1 to start your turn, and gets added to your hand. If you have the structure deck Impmon in raising, you can go ahead and raise that. If you've got 20 cards in trash, what I would do is I would slip the X antibody underneath the Impmon. I would have Impmon swing, trigger wits when attacking effect to digivolve into either Beelzemon, or mainly the Beelzemon from the structure deck as well, or the Beelzemon EX2 if I want to delete a blocker for 3, and then trigger X antibody afterwards to go into Beelzemon X for 1, because now you're digivolving over Beelzemon. And then from there, if you've got 20 cards in trash still, you're able to trash the top 2 cards of your opponent's security when digivolving and still have an extra swing, which is very good. So I like X antibody for that just full power finishing capability from a rookie, especially late game when most of your things are probably in trash already. But yeah, that is the deck profile, you guys. I hope that this kind of helps people build the deck a little bit better for Ulti Cup now that the restrictions are in effect. Let me know what you think in the comments below if there's anything you would like to change, and thank you guys so much for watching, and peace.